Welcome to the American Chronicles podcast. I'm Vlad Vidya. On May 20th, 2017, Republican Party of Texas Chairman Tom Mechler resigned, setting in motion a contest to replace him at the top of the Texas GOP. Among the candidates who has announced is James Dickey, who currently serves as the chairman of the Tarrant County Republican Party, based in Austin. Dickey is a longtime activist in the GOP, having begun his political journey as a volunteer on a Senate campaign in 1984. He has served as a precinct chair and as a delegate to both state and national conventions, and now seeks to direct the party as a whole. Dickey joined the show to discuss his candidacy, the challenges faced by the Texas GOP, and what grassroots and conservative activists across Texas must do to ensure that Texas remains in Republican hands. Coming up next on the American Chronicles. I'm joined now by James Dickey. He is the Travis County Republican Party chairman, who earlier this week announced his intention to seek the chairman position of the Republican Party of Texas, which was vacated last week when Chairman Tom Mechler resigned effective immediately. James Dickey is, as I said, the chairman of the Travis County GOP. He is a longtime grassroots activist who began his political career by volunteering for a Senate campaign in 1984. He's been to 3 national conventions, 5 state conventions, and he served as a precinct chair as well. James Dickey, welcome to the American Chronicles.
Thank you very much. It is a real pleasure to be here.
I find it interesting that we've arrived at a point where in Texas politics, not just in terms of the activism on the grassroots level, but in terms of the actual way that the state party operates, has gone into such flux that really new leadership is needed at this time. And Tom Mechler, in his resignation, noted that it's a very time-consuming and demanding job, and he steps aside, leaving the office vacant at this time. And the party, I guess, in a very real way, needs leadership now more than ever. We're entering a period in which we're going to be having elections shortly in the 2018 midterms, so you really don't have a whole lot of time to hit the ground running. And at the same time, you've got challenges inside of Texas and nationally. So you really have a challenge ahead of you. What aspects of your grassroots work do you believe, give you the most trust from the activists that you can hit the ground running?
Well, you're absolutely right. Things are coming up quickly. Literally, the filing period for the 2018 primary starts in 6 months. And so whoever is going to fill this role, the party needs to do a lot, and its number one objective can and must be to grow the party, and that includes recruiting new and better candidates, supporting the great candidates that we do have, getting more activists involved, more precinct chairs, more county chairmen, empowering them and helping grow the party. But legally, the responsibility of the party is to oversee the statewide and multi-county election races during the primary. And so its biggest single legal responsibility starts in 6 months. And that's why I strongly caution the SREC, who is now facing the 3rd chairman in 3 years, to not take that lightly and to not overlook the importance of having experience in running a primary. And as an experienced large county chair, I have a significant amount, through 2 primary seasons, have a significant amount of experience with that.
We're joined by James Dickey. He's the Travis County Republican Party chairman who's announced his candidacy to replace Tom Mechler as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. You can find his website at jamesrdickey.com. You can see him on Facebook, facebook.com/JamesDickeyTX. and you can follow him on Twitter at James Dickey. James, the challenge that Texas faces politically, not just in terms of how it relates to the United States in terms of Senate or Congress, but even locally at local elections, there's lots of leftist groups that have begun infiltrating and activating members within the state. You have groups that are being sponsored by people like George Soros or Battleground Texas, and they've begun to heavily focus on Texas. What is your plan to counter them, not only for the federal elections, for Congress and for Senate, but really for local elections? There's been lots of incidents in which the elections at the local level, municipal level, district attorneys and city council races have been impacted directly by these leftist groups.
Yeah, actually, I'd take a step back. Over 3 years ago in Travis County, we made the intentional decision, the EC voted to enable focused effort on city council, school board, and mud races. Most people who pay attention to partisan politics, to the extent they do, pay attention to the big flashy races, the Congress, the U.S. presidency, the governorship, maybe the lieutenant governorship, and a couple of others. But the reality is, by far, the biggest percentage of your taxes are impacted, at least in Texas, by your local school district board, your school board, or trustees, and by your city council and your county commissioners. And county commissioners in Texas are a partisan race, but city councils and school boards are not. And because it's not normal for conservatives and for Republicans to automatically turn to government for everything, for years we have far too often ignored those seats and ignored those races and the importance they've had on building a farm team for the Democrats, building a support base for the Democrats, building a funding source for the Democrats, and building credibility for Democrat concepts in our daily lives. And so the Travis County Republican Party 3 years ago passed a ruling that said that we would intentionally start to get involved to the extent possible in those, quote, nonpartisan races, to not cede that territory. And as a result, we ended up with 3 Republicans getting on the Austin City Council for the first time in known history. And that did make a difference. They were still outnumbered. There were 11 members on that council, counting the mayor, but it made a substantial difference in the questions that were asked from the dais, in the conversation that was had, in the news coverage even of the arguments, because it was no longer a monolithic voice of only Democrats and liberals making their case. And that's a critical thing. There's actually a bylaws change coming up at the SREC at this June 3rd meeting where the election will be. And I think that's a critical thing that the RPT has to do, and in order to fight this. And whether it's intentionally groups infiltrating or not, or it's just a natural tendency because of the way the Democrats and liberals defer to government always, we must be intentional. We can no longer cede those efforts.
You have highlighted your career. I guess you could call it your career, almost your resume, in terms of grassroots activism and involvement in the party that stretch back decades. Let's talk a little bit about that, because it brings me back. It brings me to a point that I want to make a little bit later. You're not unfamiliar with a lot of these challenges because you've seen a lot of them from the grassroots, from the ground up. Talk a little bit about the formation of your character as a political activist and what has led you to this point.
Okay, well, so I've got, I'm a businessman. I've got an MBA from Baylor. I did my undergrad at Stanford University. I've got 3 wonderful kids and a fantastic wife who's unbelievably supportive. And so for the middle part of my life, I like most conservatives, kind of ignored government and hoped it would ignore me, and just lived my life and raised my family and worked on my business. And then 2008 came around, and by the time the 2008 primary got to Texas, the choices were McCain and McCain, and I was just frustrated by that. And so I showed up at my precinct convention and got elected a delegate to my Senate district convention. And at the Senate district convention, I got elected to be a delegate, or actually an alternate, not even a delegate, to the state convention that year in 2008. And then went to the state convention and ran to be a delegate for the national convention, and became an alternate delegate for the national convention. Just hitting a level of frustration, like so many grassroots people I talk to, where they just say, enough is enough. I have to get involved. I have to do something about this. And through that, met a lot of wonderful people who were already working in grassroots in Denton County, which is where I was at the time. And my district that I was in at the time also went into northern Tarrant County, so I got to know a bunch of great people in Tarrant County. And then the Tea Party started to form, and I helped co-found the Dallas Tea Party, because I lived about 10 miles away from Dallas. And we started that and had a really good run of getting people activated and getting them involved, getting them plugged in. The vast majority of the people in the Tea Party were conservative and wanted to see more conservative things come out of the Republican Party. So we got plugged in with the Republican Party. And then for business reasons, I ended up starting a business down here in Austin, and moved down to Austin and started my activism down here, joining clubs, getting to know elected officials, volunteering on campaigns, doing that kind of thing. And then ran a contested race against a sitting precinct chair in my precinct, and won that race. I got very involved in the local Travis County Republican Party, got a lot of support as a result of that, and then ended up running to become chair of the Travis County Republican Party. And every step was just a how can I make a bigger impact? How can I continue to push these conservative principles? That's exactly what we did. And that's the step I'm at now. As a county chair, I was frustrated with the lack of support and lack of structural support that came from the Republican Party of Texas for the grassroots to really be able to make a difference. It's 254 counties who need to be recruiting great precinct chairs and empowering those precinct chairs to recruit more voters and to recruit great candidates, and to empower those candidates with a jump start of great data, great tools, and all of that is possible and should be being done. And now that this opening has happened, I am stepping up, asking the 62 members of the SREC to vote for me next Saturday, so that I can make that happen at the state level.
Well, that brings me, and the story of your involvement brings me to a point that I was trying to make, because how do we change the widespread perception that the GOP, especially Texas GOP, is old white Christian people?
Yeah.
It's something that Tom Mechler was actively working on in terms of outreach, in terms of talking with other groups, in terms of bridging those divides. And it's something that you're obviously going to have to grab with both hands, because the perception in a lot of ways for a lot of people is the reality, because you walk into a lot of these rooms where Republican groups are gathering, and those groups do not resemble the rest of the state. They don't resemble how Texas actually looks. So how do you tackle that project?
Yeah. Okay. So first, I can't change that I have just reached 50. And while that's younger than most state party chairs, it's, there are a whole lot of people would not call that young. I can't change my skin tone, and I wouldn't change my religion. So, I can't change those elements. But what I have done all of my life, including, growing up on the east side of Fort Worth and graduating from a public high school that was very much minority majority, and having fantastic relationships with great people of all races, I would continue to do that. As far as I know, I'm the only county chair who actually has a dedicated African American community engagement director and a dedicated Hispanic community engagement director. And we have, I have personally been involved in, parades in the poorest and most minority prevalent parts of the county, where we showed up and said, yes, we are Republican, and let's talk about the issues that we care about together. Let's talk about improving education and really meaningfully improving education so opportunities are better. Let's talk about improving affordability, because we're not going to tax you out of your homes or put in regulations that spike the cost of your home so that all of a sudden affordability of your neighborhood is destroyed. Let's talk about the things where we have common interest and our principles yield the best result for you. Let's talk about those together, and just being welcoming and making sure that everyone knows that that we would love to have them, and that we would love to get to work together every chance. I mean, here in Travis County, we work together with LULAC, the typically very liberal Hispanic organization, and with the NAACP to get the Austin City Council charter changed so that everyone had a better chance at fresh representation on the city council. And they were happy to work together with us on those things. And sometimes we'll disagree, but they were thrilled to work with us on that. And as a result of that, we ended up getting 3 Republicans on the city council.
So it's possible that these challenges can be confronted in a way that isn't just a cookie cutter methodology, that one size does not fit all, and you would agree that each situation, each county, each community has to be addressed individually, and those challenges have to be confronted.
Absolutely. Politics is first and foremost a relationship item, and there's no way it can or should be mandated from the top. And the other thing is, if we accept as a given the Democrat liberal framing of our cultural differences as of demographics as destiny, then we will have lost the game, because we'll be playing the game according to their playing field and their rules. And I simply refuse to do that. I simply refuse to give them that advantage and take as granted that we should be playing along with identity politics or assuming that demographics is destiny. Neither of those is right or true.
We're speaking with James Dickey. He is the chairman of the Travis County Republican Party, and a candidate to replace the outgoing departed Tom Mechler, who was Republican Party of Texas chairman, at next week's SREC meeting. You can find his website at jamesrdickey.com. You can follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JamesDickeyTX, and you can follow him on Twitter at James Dickey. James, what aspects of the chairmanship of the Republican Party of Texas do you feel will probably be the most challenging and need the most attention? Obviously, you have elections coming up at the midterms, but also you have local and municipal elections coming up as well. But the growth of the party, the vitality of the party, contributes directly to those successes. So, which aspects do you think will require the most effort immediately?
I believe in the principle that first things must come first, and so the before you set off on a whole lot of activity, aside from the absolutely required urgent stuff that must be done for legal reasons or financial reasons, that you sit down and come up with a strategy that people believe is right and can buy off on, and then you come up with the plan for implementing that strategy, and that sets your priorities and the procedures that you're going to follow to make that happen. So, yes, raising funds is absolutely critical. Growing the party is absolutely critical. But how we are going to do that and under what scenarios we're going to do that, that is a policy discussion. And frankly, the last several SREC meetings that I've attended as a guest, they have not been having substantive strategy board level discussions that they really should be. And they should be having those discussions not just at once a quarter, 1 day meetings, 2 days counting the committee meetings. This should be discussions that are happening openly, transparently, respectfully, consistently. Those members of the SREC signed up to be on the SREC because they care and because they have a lot to offer and because they have history with the party. And that's why the delegates elected them to those positions. And in my opinion, they have been woefully underused and underutilized. And that, the first quarter's efforts, while making sure that we, construct a calendar that makes sure we don't miss a single date and we know what the dates are ahead of us, that constructs a current state budget based on whatever amount of money the party currently has and what its current burn rates are, or should be, given what the current state of the structure ought to look like and the expense load ought to look like. As soon as those are done, those need to be communicated around to the SREC members, and then a real open and honest discussion needs to happen about what should be the priorities and how should they do it. And I believe very strongly that a critical part of that is empowering all levels of the party. We have thousands of smart, committed, dedicated volunteers who just really need a clear guideline, a clear set of guidelines, a clear set of tools, an effective set of tools that they could use along with the training and support to make sure that they use them as best as possible so that they can be building the party one precinct chair, one candidate, one voter at a time. And with those thousands of dedicated volunteers excited because the path is open for them, we'd see scalability that just hasn't existed when you have a small group of people mandating things from the top. I mean, we're the free market, open market people. That is the Republican principles. We should not be running the party like a Politburo or anything approaching that. It should always be our instincts to rebel at that because it's not what's best.
One of the biggest challenges that the state parties face now, not only locally but statewide, is the challenge of the internal divide that's formed with some people being on the side of the agenda being set by the national party leadership, by Congress, by the president, and wanting to follow through on those agenda items, and the other side being wanting more local views of the issues and more local agenda setting. How do you bridge that divide?
I think it's the responsibility of the higher level entities to provide the global support that is much more scalable and efficient at the higher level. So, for example, when it was much easier for the RNC to build and prepare GOP data center for the entire country, voter data available, and to do things like be able to report the movement of known Republican voters from state A to state B, be able to report that to the state. That's much more efficient and affordable if a national entity is doing that for all states. On the other hand, and at the state level, it is more efficient for the Republican Party of Texas to do email appends of adding an email address, finding an email address and adding it to a record where all we did have was somebody's name and address, finding a phone number and adding that to where all we did have was name and address. That's much more efficient at the RPT level than it is for all 254 counties to be out there trying to do it themselves. And so the state level party should be doing things like that to the extent, yes, we can test at a higher level. We can test a lot of things that smaller counties wouldn't be able to test. So to the extent you can take advantage of scalability advantages, that's exactly what you should do. And it really should be done at the ideal level, whatever that is, whether that's at the county level, the state level, the national level. You should pick the smallest level possible to do that part of the operation, because then having that available, we have 254 counties in Texas, easily 150 of them would not have a dedicated data support person, unlike we have in Travis County, would not have an experienced and full-time executive director like we're able to have here in Travis County. And so the more the RPT can provide an infrastructure that helps all of the county parties, the better it is. On the other hand, tailoring the message, knowing who to talk to, knowing who not to talk to, that stuff doesn't come through 100 or 1,000 miles away. That stuff doesn't come through the computer screen, through the data elements. That's local relationships, local knowledge, in-depth knowledge, and that's the kind of thing that should be done at the county level and below. So the recruiting of most candidates, that absolutely should be happening at a county level. The training of candidates, having training materials ready and available, a lot of those involve state laws. It makes sense for the RPT to provide a big majority of that, which the county could then tailor, but wouldn't have to take the responsibility for. Those are the kind of things that especially somebody who's got experience at multiple levels can make sure that we're right-sizing those efforts, that it's happening at the right level.
We've been speaking with James Dickey. He is a candidate to replace Tom Mechler as the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Tom Mechler stepped down last weekend. James Dickey serves currently as the Travis County Republican Party chairman, and he will be attending next weekend's SREC meeting. It's June 2nd and 3rd, I believe.
Yes.
And presenting his candidacy there. The members of the SREC will be voting to install an interim chair. Mr. Dickey, if you do win election for the chairmanship in an interim basis, will you seek a full term at the next state convention?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly would. I think we're looking at the third chairman in 3 years. I would not want to see further instability at the chairman level in the RPT.
Good to know. You can find James Dickey's website at jamesrdickey.com. You can follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JamesDickeyTX. And you can follow him on Twitter at James Dickey. Mr. Dickey, thank you very much for joining us here on the American Chronicles.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Check out my website, vladdavidyak.com, and make sure you follow me on Twitter at vladdavidyak. It'll change your life. You'll love it. Please give the show a great rating and review on iTunes. It really helps other people find us when they're searching for a show that they might love. As always, until the next time, remember, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.